So as we kick off this incredible evening of celebration of one awesome human being, I want to first just acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting today. We're currently meeting on the land of the Gadigal people. I want to pay my respect to elders, past and present, and emerging leaders. And I also want to thank those generations who for thousands of years have actually cared for country, who have actually looked after the ocean, the land, and the nature that I, as an immigrant into this country, am able to enjoy. My name's Janine Garner, and it's my absolute honour to be here tonight to celebrate the awesomeness of this incredible human being that every single one of you is here to celebrate as well. It takes a lot to get to tonight. It doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't happen by waking up one morning going, yes, I'm going to write a book, and it all appears. And tonight is a culmination of years of hard work, of decades of life, and of a hell of a lot of bravery and courage to share what Adam has shared through this book. And we'll hear from Adam shortly. But there's a couple of other people that Adam wanted you to hear from today. Hopefully one of them will get here. She's currently on a delayed flight from the Gold Coast, so we'll see what happens there. But first off, I want to introduce you to an incredible human being who I've heard a lot from Adam. I've read his bio and read it again and gone, really? Wow. This human being's pretty impressive too. And I want to introduce you to Keith Banks. Keith is one of Queensland's most decorated police officers. He's a recipient of the Bravery Medal and twice awarded the prestigious Queensland Police Valour Award Medal. He's a passionate advocate for changing the way mental health is regarded, how it's discussed, and how it is supported. He's also the best-selling author of 2 autobiographical books which document his experience as a Queensland police officer, firstly as an undercover operative and then as a tactical special weapons cop. He joined the police force in 1975 as an enthusiastic, idealistic 17-year-old and embarked on a career that spanned around 20 years. He was the leader of a tactical weapons team which forced entry to a house that was occupied by a violent armed robber. And a gun battle ensued and the offender opened fire and 2 members of the police team were killed that night, as was the offender. The murder of his friend affected Keith deeply, and he now understands that this was the start of his dark experience with post-traumatic stress disorder. He had a long career in the police force. In 1995, he resigned to accept a senior corporate role. We were talking earlier that it was probably much the same as being in the police force, working in corporate, particularly as it was in risk management. And he talks about joining that job being emotionally broken, leaving the job that he loved, knowing that if he stayed, it would have destroyed him. In 2019, he was formally diagnosed with chronic PTSD, and he took this as a positive sign in terms of now knowing that he had not been imagining his mental health struggle. He started writing about his police experience as part of self-motivated therapy, hoping to give his family an understanding of his mental health and the challenges he'd faced, and really helping them comprehend the journey that he'd gone through. His first book, Drugs, Guns and Lies, was published in 2020, and this motivated him to write a second book, Gun to the Head, a raw account of his battle with PTSD. And he just shared with me he's putting pen to paper for a third book, again about the corporate world. His goal of enabling others who are affected to understand that they're not alone is what drives Keith to do the work that he does. His aim is to help people build resilience and to recover. Please welcome Keith to the stage.
Thank you. Very kind words indeed. Firstly, I want to say welcome to everyone here. We're here to launch Adam's book, but also to have a better understanding of the human being that he is. And I'm sure many of you know him personally. If you don't, you need to get to know him personally. A few years ago, I started listening to a podcast. I have notes, I probably won't refer to them. I'm renowned for that. I started listening to a podcast, and this young man was talking about Australian military history. I have a huge respect for military history in this country. The bravery, the sacrifice, the damage, the long-lasting effects. So I was in Melbourne. Started following it, started listening to the podcast. I got a text from this young man who I'd not met. And he said, "Oh, mate, if you've got a bit of time, would you mind catching up?" And I thought, of course, absolutely. I wanted to shake his hand and say thank you for what he'd done. So we met at a pub in Melbourne. Initially, I thought for maybe 10 minutes. We had a couple of beers and we spoke for about 2 hours. And when I met Adam, I could see he was struggling. And, it's given me, my journey has given me, I think, a bit of a finely attuned compass with detecting when people are struggling with their mental health. I'm a huge advocate to talk about mental health and drag it out of the darkness into the light where it belongs. Mental health affects every one of us. Every single person in this room has some sort of trauma, whether it be childhood, relationship, things you've been exposed to, things you've seen. It matters not. Everyone has trauma. When I sat with Adam and he talked, I could see that he was struggling with a few things. So we talked, and we talked a bit more. And he opened up to me about what was happening in his life, what had happened in his life. But I could see there was a spine of steel behind that. I could sense that, and I thought, wow, this guy is on the road. He talked about his issues when he was a child. He talked about his suicidal ideation, his attempted suicide, completely open about that, and I love that. That to me is the mark of a human, a good human, who is able to open up to others without fear of judgment. So we spoke a little more, and he talked about how he was recovering and how much the podcast had helped him do that, because he was meeting, in his words, awesome people. But I wonder how many of those awesome people realised how awesome he was. Taking the time for no expectation of reward to tell other people's stories and to make them part of an historical record is an amazing thing to do. He was working as a fiery. We talked about the challenges that he'd seen, the things he'd gone through. Then he started talking about what he wanted to become, what his ambition was. And I think even in those early chats, there may have been conversation about, I'd like to write a book. I still don't regard myself as an author. I'm a bloke who just put some words down and got lucky and got it published. So when you write, and I'm pretty sure I may have used my favourite line from Hemingway, which is write drunk and edit sober. Sometimes literally in my case. But what that meant was just get the words on a page. Worry about editing later. Just get your thoughts out. So it took a while. Yeah. Writing a book is not easy. It's a labour of love. And it's sort of, you hate it, but you love it. And when you're not writing, you miss it. And when you are writing, you think it's the most amount of crap that you've ever put down on paper. That's all about imposter syndrome. And we all have it. Adam absolutely had it. And I still don't know why it still lurks on your shoulder, my friend. As indeed it does with most of us. So during the process of writing, Adam and I talk a lot. I generally ring him in the afternoon on my way to training. He generally rings me when I'm at training. Then we catch up the next day. But we talk a lot. And we talk about life. We talk about recovery. We talk about his journey. We talk about my journey. And most of all, we talk about being authentic human beings. As the writing process happened, he rang me one day, or I rang him, and he said, "Oh, brother, would you mind," in this very little timid voice, "if you wrote a chapter and could I put it in my book?" Absolutely, my friend. But it's not about me, it's about you. And I was honoured to have a chapter included in the book. I'm still waiting to get my hot little hands on it. And just see how that fits in. For me, Adam has an amazing story of recovery, resilience, overcoming some incredible challenges in his life, which led him to the point about where he thought taking his own life. I've been there, and I know there are people in this room who've thought the same. It's such a dark place to be in, And unfortunately, a number of people don't recover from that dark place, and they're no longer with us. He did. For him, that was his epiphany. And I don't want to steal your thunder, my friend, but I talk about your lot. Your journey of recovery, self-realization, and growth is amazing. I know that there will be people who read this book out there, whether they buy it in an airport, whether they get it through your website, whatever the hell it is, whether it's given to them by someone else. There will be people out there who read this book and it will change their life. One of the toughest things about post-traumatic stress disorder is that you think you're the only one in the world that's going through it. You cannot fathom that anybody else would have your pain, and you think you're nuts. That's what you actually think, you're nuts. Then when you realize that you're not alone, and that in fact what you're experiencing is shared by thousands and thousands of people, that gives you a sense of empowerment. So when I was first diagnosed in 2019, my defense mechanism is humor. I think I'm a funny guy. In fact, I reckon I am a funny guy. I've spent the last 3 decades disguising my stuff with humor. So when I sat in my shrink, who I finally found the right one, finding the right counsellor is like speed dating, by the way. Those of you who are looking for counsellors, you go, yeah, you look okay. No, you're not for me. Oh, hello. No, you're not for me. Finally, you get to one, you go, okay, we might actually have a coffee date. It's the same thing when you find the right counsellor, psychologist, or psychiatrist. I found mine. At the end of my hour, where I thought I had nothing to say and everything came out, I just said, so, Doc, what do you reckon? She said, you, Keith, have chronic PTSD, anxiety, and depression. How does it make you feel? And it took me probably 10 or 20 seconds. And I said, you know what, Doc? I won't use the language I used. It makes me feel bloody good. Because I now know I haven't been imagining it. We've had the same conversation. And during the course of Adam's writing, we had those conversations a lot. I've seen a draft of the manuscript and I've seen how his words come off the page. And if you don't feel the pathos, the sadness that he felt, then you have no soul. But also when you read the book, you will see an amazing story of recovery and resilience. So tonight, we're here to celebrate that young man, the one I met, who's inspired me greatly. And I feel very blessed to have met you, mate. You are going to kick goals in this world. You have lives to inspire and change. And I urge you to understand that. I thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight, and I thank you all for coming. So please let's have a round of applause for Adam.
Well said. I'm looking at who you're pointing at. Amelia. Is Amelia here? Oh, hello, Amelia. Her flight was delayed out of the Gold Coast. All right, let me introduce you. Hello, I was like, who's she pointing at? I can echo what Keith has said. Adam is inspiring, and Adam's story I share with my own kids. Adam's book is a pride of place in our lounge right now. The kids are reading and looking at his book. And there is something special about Adam when you meet him. He stalks you. There were moments when I said to my husband, should I be worried? But there's something about Adam where you reach out and you connect, and he's brave to ask, and then you just want to help. You just want to help. So next up, I want to introduce Amelia Adams. Amelia has been a journalist for more than 21 years, more than 14 of those with the Nine Network. Before joining the 60 Minutes team in 2022, she was Nine's senior foreign correspondent in North America. Her live reporting from the US Capitol during the January 6th insurrection saw her win 2 Kennedy Awards and a Walkley nomination. She has also reported from war zones in Ukraine and Iraq. Amelia covered the volatile final year of Donald Trump's presidency. Let's hope it is the final year. and led the 9 years coverage of the unprecedented 2020 presidential election. She reported from the Black Lives Matter protests and the Make America Great rallies. She was Nine's London-based Europe and Middle East correspondent, reporting on Brexit, the fall of Theresa May. This woman knows how to tell a story, to share a story, and to put words to paper. She's reported directly from crisis zones around the world. And over the years, she's also regularly filled in hosting the Today Show and Nine's 6 p.m. news. Please welcome Amelia Adams.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that lovely introduction. It sounds so impressive. Why does it always sound impressive when other people are talking about us? And yet we don't feel it ourselves. Does everyone have imposter syndrome all the time? It's so annoying. We need to take a leaf out of this book. Thank you for asking me to speak tonight, Adam. I'll be brief because I think we all want to hear from the man of the moment. But Adam and I connected. I think it's so fitting that we're here because we connected after Adam stalked me, as you say, in the loveliest way, over our mutual obsession with war history. And we talked about our various fascination with various battles through our childhoods. And in fact, our paths unknowingly crossed in 2018 when we both attended the centenary service at Villa Bretonner when I was the Europe correspondent. We joined the dots on that one later and we spoke very long-windedly about our love for all things war and storytelling on his podcast. So you can listen to that if you've ever got several hours of listening to us chit-chat. But I have always loved telling stories. It's something I've always done since I was a child, and obviously what I do now with 60 Minutes. But what I don't like doing is telling my own story. In fact, I find it deeply, deeply uncomfortable, which is really why I have so much admiration for Adam in publishing this book. It's not an easy task to write a book. And for many who do, and I know many people who have and actually haven't gotten it to print. I mean, that is a huge task in itself, and an enormous achievement. But just writing your own personal story, the book, as we've heard, is deeply personal. It really takes, I think, a certain courage to put your struggles, your lowest points, your shame, your guilt, your challenges, all of those emotions on paper in such an honest and very raw manner that you'll read, if you haven't already, in EasyTarget. But the true beauty of the book, I think, is that for every dark moment and every brick wall that Adam hit, every dire situation is so genuinely and often quite hilariously counteracted by, a bounce back, a win, a turning point, a realization, and then a course of action. From the despair of really merely existing in the depths of depression and bullying to a $6,000 night of partying in the Greek Islands. Must have been some expensive vodka. That was a great chapter. And of course, launching his very successful podcast series, Adam takes us on all manner of adventures. And in telling the story of how he became, I guess, a better version of himself, he offers these, what I would call Easter eggs, or these little nuggets around, gratitude, self-development, self-love, which I think we can all take something from. And what I enjoyed is that he does it in a very Australian and self-deprecating way, which is very entertaining. But it's full of moments and reflection to remind us about the fragility of life and how quickly things can go south. But importantly, I think how we can take control of our own path and our own attitude and our own sense of self and the way that we want to behave and go forward in the world. And it's a reminder of something that I think many of us, and certainly myself, really struggle with, and that is asking for help. Reaching out when times are tough, leaning on the people that love and support you no matter what. And honestly, that's really something I've only learned in my 40s, after moving countries, changing jobs, and ending a marriage all in 6 months. Maybe I should write a book as well. I'm not brave enough, that's the truth. But you really do never know what's going on in someone else's life. And it's so often the smallest thing, the smallest act of kindness, answering a phone, that can change or in Adam's case, even save a life. And after all, I think that human connection is certainly why we are all here tonight, to celebrate a wonderful achievement. So I'm sure we all want to hear from Adam, but just before I hand over, there's one line in this book. I mean, there's lots of lines that I loved, but one that gave me a real chuckle and that has stayed with me after detailing all of his trials and challenges and how he found his way through. I love when Adam writes, "My future is now so bright, I need to wear shades." I thought, it's just like the ultimate self-pump up line. I love it. It's so you. And I think if this book is anything to go by, you'll be needing to wear those shades for many years to come. I can't wait for my 10-year-old son to read this. So thank you and congratulations.
So, Adam, I hope you're feeling the love in the room. I know I'm not the only one that said to you, this is your night, and it is. There are some incredible people in this room, people that have written books, people that have traveled the world, people that are doing great stuff, family, friends, mum, dad, and they're all here for you. Adam and I met in 2021 via Instagram, and he did stalk me. And he kept commenting and commenting, and much like you, Keith, I was like, who is this guy? Like, who is this person? And we started chatting. Then we jumped on the phone, and he said, Janine, I want you, what was it he said to you, Joe? I'm going to work with you. I went, oh, okay. All right, let's have a little chat. And we started talking, and we started working together. And the reason we started working together is because there is something special about Adam. There is a rawness and a realness to how he tells his story. And he has this incredible ability to, you just want to help him. For me, my passion is about helping other people become what they're supposed to become. And I saw, it was through COVID, and I said, you know what, I've got time, let's do this. Let's make this happen. I think I said to you, I'll be your best friend, but you'll hate me at times too, because I'll push you hard. But if you're willing to do the work, let's do the work. And during the first conversations, when he started sharing his story, when he started telling me what he'd been through, and you kept hearing it, and he was like, and there's more, and there's more, and there's more. It's like, keep going. But that's, as you were saying, Amelia, the hard stuff followed by the light. The love for his family and his nan and his brother, the willingness to forgive, the ownership around doing things himself, the bravery to ask for help. And then what I heard was this passion around, I don't want people to go through what I've been through. I want to reduce youth suicide. I've got to share my story. And I went, okay, quit hiding, share your story. And I think he told me where to go after that phone call. And I went, no, you can't keep this to yourself. If you really believe, because I believe the reason you are here is you've got a job to do. The reason you're still here is there's a gift. And it's up to you to be brave enough to tap into that gift. And I reckon there were probably 3 times where you almost gave up. I remember the phone calls. The power of connection where there's people here that I've introduced him to. There's people I know that have helped him who have, on the back of me sharing Adam's story, have gone, okay, I'll do it. Shannon's one at the back. We've got Beck here. By the way, I think Sandy's outside the War Memorial. She can't get in the doors. I've just got a text. Someone outside. that there are people that are willing to help because they love you and they want to support you. And as Keith said, it's not easy. Writing a book is not easy. Sitting on your butt, being glued to the seat when all around you is telling you to stop, when all around you is saying, who do you think you are? What makes you think you can write a book? To keep going through that takes an incredible amount of resilience, an incredible amount of courage, and an incredible amount of determination, even though you don't know what the outcome's going to be. I've written 3 books, and I have to say it's the scariest thing ever, publishing a book. Because putting your words out there for the world to see, people that you have no idea who they are, and knowing that people are going to make their own assumptions or judgments, I find personally really scary. But Adam's done it. And as Amelia said, he's not just written the book, he went and got a publisher. Like it's a proper book. It's on shelves. You can buy it. I think he's turning into an Audible version too. And he's got a publicist. He's getting media coverage. That takes work. But the work goes from here now. And I'll come on to that in a second because we want to hear from Adam. But I also want to ask you to start thinking as Adam shares his story, because you're all here tonight because he loves you and he wants your support. And now the work is our work. It's up to us to buy the book, to share the book, to talk about the book, to spread the message, to help Adam do the work that he's here to do. So Adam, take a big deep breath. This is another first. Come and stand in your spotlight, my friend, because you absolutely deserve it.
Thank you, Janine. I'd like to take a moment to speak about my friend and mentor. She kind of stole my thunder a little bit, so in how we met and how we started working together. But I knew from the moment I met Janine that we were destined to work together. And there was just something about her that it was the quickest business decision I've ever made. 10 seconds and I said, that's it. I'm in. Let's go. I don't know how I'm doing this, but let's go. And as Janine said, although I did the work, none of this would have been possible without you, Janine. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And when you told me to write my story, as you said, I did tell you to fuck off. And I exclaimed, I can't write a book. I barely passed Year 12 English. You said to me, you can and you will do this. So, couldn't think of anyone better to be MC tonight. So Janine, thank you for believing in me. Thank you. I'd also like to dedicate tonight to 2 people who are no longer with us. Nick, and then this one's for you. And before I begin, I'd like to recognise our veterans and our first responders who have served all of us so we can have the freedom and be here in this special place this evening. It's spring, September 2014. For most people, it was an ordinary day. For me, the day started like any other. The alarm went off, and at 4 a.m, I got into the shower. Just another day. Nothing significant. No sign of anything special. Little did I know that in 12 hours, I'd be standing on the edge of a cliff, ready to throw myself off. Life has never been easy for me. I was an ordinary kid, growing up in a middle-class Australian family. Mum was a nurse, and Dad was a crane operator. Life was moving for our little family. Until at the age of 6, I was diagnosed with ADHD. It's not a big deal in 2024. However, 25 years ago, this was huge. From this time onwards, as a result of my newly discovered learning difficulties, the bullying started. From this time onwards, the belief that I was useless would continue to fester. And I was too young to realise that it had taken hold in my mind. Fast forward to year 6. I'm losing sight of any remnants of a happy little boy. And instead coming to class and being told that I would amount to nothing in life by my teacher. Another hit to my barely existent self-esteem. Life wasn't getting any easier. As I entered high school, things got worse. I was an easy target. There was no resilient shield like you see today. Constant and aggressive verbal bullying had eroded me into mental weakness. As if high school wasn't hard enough, try fitting in at 120 kilos with red hair and freckles. Not an easy task. I stood out for all the wrong reasons. It is said that if you argue for your limitations, they become yours. Well, they definitely did. I fought hard, and I got to keep every single one of them until they led me to that cliff. It's 2010. Thank God. High school is finished. I thought the bullying would stop. I mean, it should have, right? Wrong again. I was once again the target of another person's dissatisfaction. This time, in the workforce. Fitting in was apparently not the plan. And work colleagues decided that I was the verbal punching bag. Yet, little did they know that every taunt, every rumour, and every insult kept pushing me deeper into a world of hurt that I dared not to show. Soon enough, I gave in and believed it all. When you are constantly told that the world would be a better place without you, you inevitably concede defeat. It was the frequency of what my work colleagues were saying about me that started me to thinking they were right. Fast forward to that fateful day in September, when I was dealt the final blow. Hurt, tormented, and alone in a world of strangers. It was 3 p.m. when my boss drove up next to me to tell me what he thought, calling me a liar, a bludger, and a thief. That was all it took. They won. And the latest bully had catastrophically broken my soul. There was no turning back. I decided to end my life that day. People tell stories about the clarity they experience, the weight that feels lifted when they decide to end their life. They're right. All of the pain seemed to disappear, and I knew this was the right thing to do. The world would be a better place without me. My parents would be better off. My brother Scott would be better off. And ultimately, I would be better off. Did you know that there are over 3,000 deaths by suicide annually in Australia alone? That's on average 9 people per day who, just like I did, decide that suicide is their only option. So now, while we are here in this precious moment, I'd like to invite everyone to please join me in a moment of silence to remember those who are no longer with us and to pray for those who are still struggling. As I drove to the cliff, I was certain of what I was about to do. It was a cold, cloudy afternoon, and unusually, there was nobody around. In preparation, I put my wallet and my keys on the bonnet of my car. I started walking to the edge of the cliff. I recall it clearly. There was no pain, no guilt, just a peace like I had never experienced. I was clear on what I was about to do. Standing on the edge, looking out into the mountains, the drop is steep. There was no way I was coming back from this if I jumped. I looked out for one final time. As I prepared to throw myself off the ledge, I thought I heard a voice that I recognised. The voice of my guardian angel, my late Nana. Adam, stop. Step back. Pick up the phone and make a call. Can one phone call make a difference? Well, I'm here talking to you. So yes, one phone call can make a difference. I'm often asked, did I want to kill myself that fateful day? On reflection, 10 years on, no, I didn't. I just wanted the pain to stop. Looking back now, what would I say to the young Adam on the cliff? I would say to him, strap yourself in for a wild ride, a journey of self-discovery, a lot of ups and downs, and through all the pain, you'll grow stronger and become the new Adam 2.0, and he's pretty sensational. My favourite actor is Denzel Washington. In his famous speech of 2017 at the NAACP Awards, he coined this phrase: without commitment, you'll never start, but more importantly, without consistency, you will never finish. Ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship. Reaching out and asking for help was the hardest thing I ever did. However, it was also the best decision I ever made. So as I speak tonight, if you are struggling, know that you are not alone. And it's not weak to speak. Speaking up takes courage. Speaking up saved my life. Nowadays, I stack the evidence to prove that I am who I say I am. It's an Alex Hormozi quote that I learned from my coach, Joe Jackson, who's here tonight. Joe, you've been my loving butt kicker, my teacher, my pit crew, and my biggest supporter. I love you to the moon and back. Thank you for always believing in me. My one hope is by sharing my story, it will save lives, then everything leading up to today has been worth it. And I would love if you would join me. Thank you.
How are you feeling?
Overwhelmed?
Tell me more about that.
I think, to be honest, Janine, with when you and I started this process, I actually thought that I'd bitten off more than I could chew. And with being told for so long that you'd amount to nothing, you believe that. And I think it was just you saying to me, no, you've got this. That it started the journey, and you and I were working together, and one session we got on together and we were halfway through your program and you said we need to stop. And I thought I'd done something wrong because you're the butt kicker that you are. And I said, Janine, what do you mean we've got to stop? I've been doing the work, like you said. And you said to me, no, you need to write your story. And yeah, as I said, I told you to fuck off. And yeah, and there was many times that, it was hard,
and there was times I remember flying to Melbourne doing another podcast, and I said to you, my dream is this to, this dream cannot come true, that I can write a book, become a motivational speaker. And you said, well, you got two choices. Adam, you got to fucking write your story. I'm not going to write it for you. And I remember we were at a workshop in November last year, and you said, I didn't say that. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. So, and I think just having you and many others come into my life has just put me on a path that positivity attracts positivity, negativity attracts negativity, and for a long time I was surrounded by negativity, and now I've flourished with positivity in my life.
And as I've always said to you, you've done the work. Yes, you've got lots of support, but none of us can write Adam's story but Adam. None of us can make the phone calls but Adam. And so, my question to you is, over those 3 years, I know there were many times you wanted to give up. What was it that really kept you going?
I always went back to the why. The why I was writing my story, to help others, to not just young people, but anybody. And the times that I thought it's too hard. And I remember you saying to me that just treat it like your fitness. Just write 500 words a day, every day. And I think throughout the whole writing process, there was times that I only wrote 250 words and closed it and just went, it's not going to be today. And I think everyone who has written a book knows that there are some days where it just flows, and in other days it's just a grind and a hard slog. And I think I learned that for me, I just needed to be kind to myself and take the good days of thousands of words, and then take the days of where I only wrote 250 words. And I just always went back to that why. Why am I writing this? I'm writing this to help people because I believe that I can help so many people, and I'm comfortable in my story. It's my story. I'm comfortable in my skin now. For a long time I wasn't, and I played the victim, and I'm not the victim anymore.
So not being the victim anymore didn't just start on that day Nan spoke to you. Because how old were you when that happened?
22.
So, okay, and how old are you now? You're 30.
32.
Because I came to your 30th birthday. Yeah. So over the course of that, who was Adam at 22? So he was a little bit broken.
He was a scared little boy.
How heavy were you?
140 kilos at that stage.
And what did you choose to do? What were some of the things that turned it around for you?
I put my hand up and asked for help, and realised that it got too big for me. And as Keith said earlier, it took me 3 years to find the right psychologist, and bouncing around. And you've got, as Keith said as well, you've got to find the right psychologist for you. That some just sit there and listen and tick a box and don't get to the root cause of what your problems are. And when I found my psychologist, he just said, there's an elephant in the room. If you wait, if you lose weight, your life will change. And I think for the longest time, I was in denial about that. And we worked on all my childhood trauma and all the bullying, but I just kept going back. And he said, I'll take your money, but if you lose the weight, your life will change. And then I woke up one morning and said, I don't want to be like this anymore. I want to change. I owe it to myself to try. I see so many positive and happy people, and kind of being negative it's kind of sucks. And yeah, I just went, I'm going to try something different, and started on the process of finding positive, influential people.
So you had surgery as well,
Correct.
and you started a road to fitness. Could you swim any distance at the age of 22?
Yeah, I've always been a strong swimmer. So
Could you run any distance at the age? What about riding a bike?
No,
All right. So you achieved another milestone, didn't you?
I did.
Now we've got another triathlete here in the room, Beck Chappell. You ran your first triathlon in what year? Was that last year?
Last year.
Yeah. So triathlon is what? How much swimming?
So it was 500 swim,
Running?
5k,
Yeah. And cycling?
20k.
Yeah. That's a pretty cool achievement. So it's not just private, yes. It's 750 metres.
Sorry, yeah, 750.
Yeah. So it's not just the book, it's a podcast. How many downloads on the podcast? What's the latest on the podcast?
96,000.
Yeah. And how many people told you were crazy to do that?
Almost everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to pass the mic out in a second, but you're in a room with people that love you. They're here for you. What would you say to all those naysayers that you've turned away from now?
Eggs on your face. Politely.
And as people are thinking about their question, what is next for Adam? Because you're amazing at putting intentions out there and bringing them to life. What do you want to do next?
Love to get into motivational speaking. Go into schools, work with young kids who are going through similar, and write another book.
Oh. All right. Anyone got any questions for Adam?
Adam, well done, mate. I mean, those of us who've known you for a while, is it
10 years.
10 years now? I don't think any of us would have believed the transformation we were going to see. I mean, you were always a good bloke. That was never an issue. But the transformation now to Adam 2.0 has been really remarkable. And we're here with I'm a military historian, by the way, for people who don't know, and I'm here with a bunch of people that have walked the battlefields with me. I wanted to ask about that because I've been on the battlefields with you. I've seen the incredible research that you've done into your family. And I know Amelia touched on the importance of military history and the Anzacs to you and all the great work you've done with podcasts. But I want to ask about that, about walking the battlefields and tracing your family, because it's such a great story. And how important has that been on your journey?
Huge, mate. It's something that I wrote in the book. Dad and I attended the Gallipoli Centenary with you, and it was really from the 95th anniversary that I said to Dad that we'll go to Gallipoli for the 100th anniversary, and Dad said, "Oh, yeah, mate, yeah, sure." And I said, "No, we will go," and that just started my passion for. So I just started learning more and more about my family and their service, and just. It's one thing to read it in textbooks. It's another thing to actually walk that ground. And when you're in those cemeteries, you can't fathom the scale and how many people have actually paid the ultimate sacrifice. And I had a moment at Gallipoli, and I was at Lone Pine. I was on my own. And I came across a headstone that there's a generation from 15 to 25. And the headstone, God has a funny way of working. I stopped at this headstone and he was 22 years old. And that was the year that's how old I was when I attempted suicide. And I burst into tears. And the whole tour group came over and saw me. And they asked me, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I'm not." I said, "He came over for the grand adventure and he wanted to live and he died." And that was where I started to understand that life is precious and it's a gift to age. It really is. And it's a true blessing that we walk this earth. And I now, from those battlefields, I now every day find 10 things that I'm grateful for. And if I can't find 10 things, I don't get out of bed until I find 10 things. And that has really helped me. And the battlefields changed my life because it opened me up to so many amazing veterans. Mark Wales did the foreword for my book. I've spoken to so many special force operators that they trust me to allow me to share their stories, and it's the greatest gift. I really love what I do, and it's a privilege and an honour to share their stories because it's our history and we should be proud of our history. And so, yeah, walking the battlefields with you changed my life and put me on a trajectory that I never thought possible.
Questions? Goodness, it's my stats up for the day. Hey Adam, at what point in writing the book did you feel like, giving up or it was too much, and what changed your perspective on that?
I think the constant support from my family, Janine, Joe, and many others that continually kept pushing me to write my story. And I think when you undertake writing a book, as Keith said, Janina said as well, many other authors in the room, you've got to have support. You've got to have people that back you and support you, and because it is hard. It's a hard road. It's not easy. There is the self-doubt comes in, the imposter syndrome, as Janine said, who would want to read my story? And the constant wrestling with yourself to say, am I good enough? And yeah, I think surrounding myself with people, and yourself, Brooke, really helped on that journey.
Adam, you're a legend, mate.
Thanks, Deb.
Now, you've written the book. I'm going to put it out there for you like a challenge. 120 pages for a film script. Netflix needs you, mate, and only you can write a story. Okay?
I'll have to try and speak to some media connections, mate.
You got a few of those. Back.
Adam, hi everyone, my name's Mitch. I'm Adams. We're another recipient of reaching out through social media. So, but we're very welcome. This is not a question, it's more of a statement. So we've seen here earlier tonight Banksy, a man of his calibre, starting to well up at the end of his speech about the person you are. I'm trying to think how I can deliver this without finding myself ending up in ICAC for what happened today. But I won't say where I'm from, but I was in a regional airport, and I come across some people I work with. And it was a general manager and a mayor of a prominent regional city. And we got talking, what are you doing in Sydney? We're flying in. And I talked about what I was here for tonight. Right? And this alludes to what you're talking about who would read it and how does this touch people. So as I tell them what I'm doing, give them a bit of a rundown, and as we're about to take off, I flick in your website. You're sitting a few seats up from me. We get into Sydney, we're walking out, we get in the taxi, we're sharing a taxi to come into the big Sloan. He slips a $50 note in my pocket. You know, and how does that feel being a state government employee that influences grant funding from a local government representative who's always fighting for funding? But he said to me, I saw that website you sent me, that is fantastic. I want a copy of that book. So just remember that, mate, about who you touch. So just wanted to pass that message on.
Thanks, Mick.
G'day, mate. Congratulations again.
Thanks, mate.
Mate, I'd just like to ask you, as someone who's used to asking the questions from everyone else, how is this experience of you telling your own story, how is that going to change the way you do business now? Is it going to change at all how you do podcasts? Or
No, because it's always 80% of the guest, 20% of me. I've got my story. It's now in publish. Whenever I have a guest on, it's all about them. It's not about me. So I won't change my approach in how I interview the guest, because I invite them on to share their story, and it's your stories that matter to me. And I have to say that starting the podcast was, it's been a real cathartic process, because it allowed me to share parts of my story in with veterans and first responders, and it has been the greatest thing that I've ever done, is having the courage to back myself and my team as well that have helped me along the way. Margaret, who is mentioned in the book, Adam, and Kyle, who can't be here tonight, he's in Korea, my editor. It's a team, and it's a small team, but without them, the podcast wouldn't exist. And I'm just so blessed and so grateful to do what I do. And yeah, thank you all for coming and sharing your stories. It's an absolute honour and a privilege.
Hi. I'll be very honest, I didn't know who you were. 3 nights ago, a friend told me she was coming here, and I asked about coming along. I've done a little bit of research since then. I'm dealing with my own stuff. Thank you for sharing. I work with high school kids. My son's had his own problems. So I just want to say thank you.
Well,
Okay, we're going to do one more. Adam, I'd just really like to know, you mentioned briefly about your diagnosis with ADHD, and I suppose as a teenager that was kind of a little bit of a, stigma. But now that you're older and you're so busy with your podcast and your sport and your book, and do you think of it more now as a blessing, as a positive thing, or is it still a bit of a?
I think of it now, it is a gift. It is, because it's made me who I am. It's made me, all the experiences that I've had has led me to where I am today. And do I ever think that I'm nobody special? I'm just an ordinary. You can. It's. I think. Yeah, it is a blessing now, and sometimes I curse when certain things, spelling and certain things, still are a struggle. But I'm not a victim. I'm not a victim anymore. I've taken back my power from the bullies, and I'm thriving now, and I'm not surviving. So for me, yeah, it is. It's everything that's happened in my life is a blessing, and it's got me to the point of where I am tonight.
Okay, I'm sure there are many people here tonight that would love to get a photo with this incredible human being. So I reckon it's time for you to socialise, be famous, have some photos. He's not going to ask, so I'm going to ask. There's books for sale tonight. Please purchase one, at least, if not 2 or 3. I'm assuming we can pay you also. Because it's the biggest gift, right, when you put in all this effort. Now, it's not about buying it and it going in the toilet, waiting for someone to pick up. Read it, share, take a photo. We've got an amazing photographer here today. If you stand there with the photo in front of you, she'll take a photo for you. Adam will get that photo. Adam will send you that photo. You can then share that photo. But this is up to us now, because what happens next for Adam, he can't do on his own. It's up to us to share the story, share the book, share with people how to buy it, share the link like Mitch did. Because it's up to all of us to be able to spread that news. He's thrown a pebble in a pond and it's up to all of us to create the ripple. And you're here to support him. So I'm asking all of you, because if all of us do one thing and take one photo, let's take over the interwebs tonight. Because we can, because you never know who out there needs to hear that there is a book there, a resource there that they can reach out for. I'd love you all, those of you that can, to stand up, to raise an invisible glass. But let's give this incredible human a massive standing ovation and round of applause.